Hey, it's Adri with our horse Saoirse. Today we're going to be going over how to tack up a horse. There's a lot of debate. Should you staple them? Should you tape them? Should you tie them up? Tacking up seems to do the best job. Okay, that was really dumb, but right now she is nice and cleaned. I groomed her. You're going to want to groom your horse before you tack them up, because if there's little bits of dirt or if their hair is kind of matted up in a weird spot, it can be very uncomfortable for the horse. It can cause rubs, and it can kind of make your tack dirty and disgusting too. If you can imagine tacking up a dirty horse, what that would do for your saddle. Not a whole lot. Alrighty, so getting all sweaty. Now we're going to go over the parts of the saddle. It helps to know what is what when you're first learning. So if someone refers to, for example, the pommel of the saddle, what they're referring to is this piece right here that goes right over the wither. If they're talking about the seat, the part that your butt goes in, that makes sense. The highest part of the saddle, the back, this is a cantle. The part that covers up your stirrup attachment, this is called a skirt. The squishy part at the front is called a knee roll. Just provides a little extra padding for your knees, because when you're riding horses, you have a bend in your knee. This is a stirrup right here. This is just where your foot sits. This is the stirrup leather, which connects your stirrup to your saddle through this little bar piece right here. And you can adjust the length of your stirrups by either putting this little buckle down a hole or up a hole. A good rule of thumb for determining stirrup length is if you put your fingers here and pull your stirrup right where it goes under your armpit, that's a good rule of thumb of where you want your stirrup length to be. But everybody's different. Some people have long torsos, some people have short torsos, and long legs, short legs, so all kinds of people. So this is just a general rule of thumb. For me, it works well. For dressage, you might want them a couple holes longer, so you have a longer leg, so you have better contact with the horse. For jumping, you're probably going to want to shorten them a hole or two, just so that you can bend your knee and really get into the jump position a little bit better. These are called billets. My saddle is a saddle that makes sense. You only attach 2 of your billets, and there's only 2. A lot of the saddles will have 3, and you only attach the front and the back. I will never understand why that is. So I have my handy dandy English saddle with a saddle pad, and you can tack up a horse on either the right or left side. I do the left side mostly because that's the side that you're taught everything from. And hi, oh, she thinks I have a treat in my pocket. And it's also the side that you're gonna do most of your mounting and dismounting from, so just muscle memory, but it is good to be able to do it from both sides of your horse in case you ever have to. I'm just gonna go ahead, put this up over her wither and slide it back. When you slide it backward, it's going to very gently click into place. I'll show you. So let's say put it way up high. And if you drag it this way, all the hairs are going the same direction. So it's going to be more comfortable for her. So I'm going to slide it back until it basically starts to go uphill at that point. And that's how you know to stop. I have a little saddle pad here. Back in the day, people didn't ride with saddle pads, and it was just a saddle on a horse. But now we know this is a great way to protect your horse's back, add extra comfort, and it's also going to protect your saddle too. Remember, all that nastiness on your horse's back, it will end up under your saddle if you don't put a little pad there. It can also help to warm up your horse's back as well. If you can imagine being cold and frigid and then having to do a workout, not very nice, huh, Saoirse? So helping the back to warm up, that is advantageous. You'll notice these little straps here. This strap is just where you put your billets through. So you'll notice that this saddle looks a little bit different than the typical saddle, mostly because there's not your traditional billets. That's because she is a wide horse. This means that instead of having a high wither and a narrow back, she's kind of shaped more like this. Instead of like a little racehorse, she's shaped a little bit like a barrel. That's okay. So you just need a little bit of a wider saddle. I put a saddle on her, the very first one I ever bought for her, not really realizing that I should have measured her beforehand. And it was kind of like putting a high chair on her. It just sat on top of her and it didn't conform to her body at all. So if you go to the front of the saddle, you can really see how wide it is, going from this part all the way up and over to the other side. Speaking of which, I do have to fix this. That's one of the perks of having a wide horse. A lot of times this ends up crumpling up. You don't have to do this, but if you kind of put your hand, make sure all the hairs are going the right way. Okay, good girl. Next, we're gonna go ahead and grab the girth. The girth is how you keep the saddle on the horse. So this definitely needs to get cleaned. She sheds a lot. This is fleece, so it kind of just seems to be like tape, and it just like picks up all her hair, but that's all right. You just have to kind of like either lint roll or brush it with a curry afterwards. I'm super lazy, so I tend not to do that. So with the super long billets, most billets are short and there's 3 of them. Why is there 3 when you only use 2 of them? Nobody knows. Just something there to confuse you, I guess. I'm gonna go ahead and lace my billets through. I always start on hole number 1. Good girly. Oh, one thing I should point out about the saddle, you want to make sure that you have a lot of wither clearance. You don't want the saddle pad to be taut and flat on the horse's back. If you can imagine having a tight piece of fabric on you in an area where you need a lot of flex and movement and a lot of give. So you're going to want to make sure you have a little bit of a tent here at the front for wither clearance. So right here I can fit about 3 to 4 fingers under here. That's suitable for her. I'm just going to pull up your girth and lace this through. And again, only doing it 1 hole's worth. Okay. 1 hole. Then I'm going to go around and do the other side. As you can see, right where her girth goes is basically, if you can draw like a line straight from the wither, it's going to be behind the front legs. You don't want it too far back or right on her like armpit area, because then it's going to cause some rubbing and friction between her armpit and the girth. So making sure there's a nice little space there, and we're going to tighten this another hole. And you can do, let's say your horse needs 4 holes on each side. You can do it all in one swoop, but I think it's uncomfortable. Picture yourself putting on some jeans, and if you like, we have to go suck in and zip it up really quickly, that can be very uncomfortable. So I like to do it nice and slow, and I like to make sure that however many holes I get on one side, I get the same amount of holes of tightness on the other side. If you tighten one side to, let's say, the first hole, and then on the right side, I tighten it all the way up to 6, she's going to have uneven pressure. That's just going to make the saddle fit very uncomfortable for her. The whole ride's not going to be comfortable. So now we are on hole 2 for both sides. You might be wondering, how do you know how tight to go? One way to check, if you take your hand and you put it between the horse and the girth, you should be able to pull it toward you a little bit. You don't want it to be so loose that the saddle's moving, but we don't need to make her into a sausage link either. Some people also use what's called a half pad. So it looks similar to a regular saddle pad, but it goes down to probably about here on most saddles. That is just another way to better fit a saddle to the horse's back. Some horses need it, some don't. Saoirse, like I said, she's a very wide horse, so wedging another bit of material underneath her saddle doesn't really work for her. But for a lot of those more narrow horses, there can be like a little bit of a gap under the saddle, a little bit of bridging. So a half pad can help make the saddle fit a little more properly. Keep in mind, a half pad is not a substitute for a poorly fitted saddle. If it's too narrow or too wide, you can put all the padding, all the foam all the half pads you want under there, and it's not going to be an appropriate fit for your horse if the saddle doesn't conform to the horse's back. Once your saddle is on your horse, you're going to want to make sure nothing is pinched or wrinkled. For example, if this saddle pad was bent up underneath, that would be uncomfortable for the horse. If it was pinching her, if this was too tight, you're just going to want to make sure that it seems to be nice and comfortable, that all the hairs go in the same direction. Next, we're going to go ahead and put the bridle on her. You should always put your helmet on before you bridle your horse, just so if there's an accident, or usually when you're done putting the bridle on your horse, you're getting directly on anyway, so it just saves you a step. It does protect your head when you're putting a bridle on the horse. For Saoirse, I'm going to be using a bitless bridle. I've ridden her in bits in the past, and they just don't really work for her. She's let me know that they are not her thing. I'm just going to stick to the left side because when you're learning, this is probably going to be how you're taught to do it. So just stick with what's easiest. A couple different ways you can proceed. Once you put the reins over the horse's head, make sure you always put the reins over the horse's head before you disconnect the halter. That way, if something were to happen, you have control of your horse. A couple different ways we can proceed. You can, for example, disconnect the halter here, put it around her neck, but then you're going to want to make sure you don't loop it and attach it like you normally would, because if your horse pulls back, you want them to have a breakaway system, meaning that if they pull against whatever they're connected to, it will break away and they'll be free. We don't want her to break a neck or get any fractures that can be fatal. So you can either just loop it through here so that if she does pull back, she'll be able to flee. The way I prefer to do it is to attach it here. But then that means on this end, I have to detach this. You can see I have a quick release. I'm going to pull it. This way, she's not tethered to anything. It is untied. So that if she pulls away, she'll be free. So over here, I'm going to go ahead and latch this up. Like I said, only latch this up if this is not tethered. I always take this little bit on the bottom. This is going to be different, obviously, if you have a bit. I just put her bitless on like this. Then I take her outside ear, put it through, and put her other ear through. Good girl. And then once you've got the ears through, you're going to want to make sure that the headband isn't too high up on the horse so that's flopping around, or too low that it's tight on their forehead. A good rule of thumb where it branches off right here on the bridle, that's usually where you want this little piece here to sit. Then I'm going to pop this part off. We still have our reins here, so if something happens, we have control. I'm going to tighten the throat latch. Now the throat latch, you want this to be relatively loose. You want to be able to fit about 4 fingers between the bottom of this jaw portion here and the strap. And then for the nose band, you're going to want to fit about 1 to 2 fingers between. Good girly. And then this is the part where you would put your gloves on. Now if you had a bitted bridle, there's a part in the horse's mouth between the incisors, so the front teeth, and the premolars and molars, the cheek teeth. There's a part that does not have teeth called a bar, and that's where you would place it. So if you put your thumb kind of in the corner of their lips here, that is where they have no teeth, right here. Good girly, good girly. And so you would put the bridle on a little bit differently. So you'd have the bridle hanging in your right hand. You would go like this with your left hand to get them to open their mouth up. And then you just slide the bit in, and then you with the rest of it. One other thing you're going to want to make sure you do is make sure all your little end pieces are in what we call keepers, because you don't want these flapping around and you don't want these sliding around either. Go ahead, make sure everything's in our keeper. And then the same on the nose band. You can see I have one keeper over here. This is just flopping around in the wind. Gonna go push it just like that. And we have an all tacked up horse. I hope you have learned something today. Unfortunately, I don't ride Western. I don't own Western tack, and I have no idea how to tack up Western, so I apologize to the Western riders out there that I am not representing right now. That's just not my area. That is how you tack up a horse with an English saddle, and at least the way I do it. There's multiple ways to do the same thing. As long as the end result is the same, that's all that matters. As long as you're tacking up with a saddle that fits appropriately, you're comfortable, your horse is comfortable, everything's gonna be okay. If you have any questions, you can always consult a saddle fitter. These are professionals whose entire job revolves around making sure tack fits. I use a Wintec saddle because I like the fact that my saddle can get wet and I don't have to immediately go into a panic of whether or not it's gonna crack and get moldy and disgusting. Let me know in the comments what kind of saddles you use, what kind of tack you use. My bridle is from Free Spirit Equestrian. I absolutely love these bridles. Saoirse really likes them too. They're super soft, super cushy. I'll be using them in the foreseeable future. I've gone through so many bitless bridles, and these are the only ones that hold up, are super comfortable, and they're just really cute. Like, you can like snap out the brow band and make it a nice, cute, colorful one. You don't have to go with the same old, same old. Let me know in the comments what kind of tack you use and why. Bye for now. This is my saddle cover. I've had my saddle for I think 4 years now, and I swear I've only washed my saddle cover one time. That's really bad. Oh, look at Saoirse. There's no treats in there. There's no treats in there, you bad girl. So I think I need to take this home and clean it. I can show you how to do it real quick. Super, super easy. It just keeps it in a nice condition so that little mice don't poop on it. Ooh. But you're a nuisance. That's a bottle of water. Okay. Now this is on. And these might be permanent stains. I have no idea. No idea. Sorry if you're eating.